A soft hum pulsed through the empty corridors of Observation Station Gamma, the echoes of a lone sentinel's steps marking time in a place long forgotten by most of humanity. Lieutenant Mara Chen pressed her forehead against the cool viewport glass and stared into the velvet black beyond. Distant stars pierced the darkness, but it was a different light, an alien beacon that held her attention. She had watched it flicker through the long night watch, each pulse like a whispered cry for help. Somewhere out there, thousands of light years away, an ancient race was calling to Earth. The Silurians were said to be one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, their legends woven into the earliest star charts. Rumors spoke of vast libraries and soaring temples, of art that outshone even the brightest sun. Yet for centuries, their world had grown silent. Their fleets vanished, their diplomats fell mute, and their scholars ceased sending transmissions. Now one tiny signal shimmered through the void, resonating on frequencies no human engineer had ever tested. It carried fear and hope in equal measure. Mara's communic crackled to life. "Lieutenant, you seeing this?" Commander Arjun Patel's voice was tight with urgency. Behind him, the station's chief scientist, Dr. Elena Russo, pored over the spectrograph readings. Dr. Russo's eyes were wide with wonder. "It's definitely structured," she said. "Patterns repeat in ways that suggest language. They're asking for aid." Across Earth, similar readings hurtled through data networks. On crowded streets, people paused mid-stride as news feeds blinked with the alert, "Alien SOS detected." Social feeds lit up with stunned disbelief. Would Earth answer a call from the stars after centuries of listening and receiving silence? Debates flared in conference halls and dinner rooms alike. In the council chambers of the United Earth Government, Admiral Solace Nakamura stood before a holographic display of the Silurian home system. Her uniform was crisp, her posture unwavering, yet her voice trembled. "We face unknown risks," she warned. "We cannot ignore the chance of contamination or ambush. But we also cannot turn away from those who cry for help." A murmur rippled through the delegates. On one hand stood fear and caution. On the other lay compassion and duty. Dr. Russo had flown in to testify about the signal itself. She described how the frequency pattern matched the cyclical growth rings of sylvan trees on Earth, an unexpected parallel that spoke of shared logic in life itself. "To me," she said softly, "that means we are not so different." Tears brimmed in her eyes as she touched her data slate, as though shielding a fragile hope. Late into the night, after hours of heated debate, a single vote swung the decision. The Deathworlder fleet would mobilize. Known throughout the galaxy for surviving the harshest planets where acid rains fell in gravity, crushed these warships and their crews were humanity's toughest shield. But now they would serve as humanity's gentle hand, bringing medicine instead of missiles. In the silent hangar bays, the massive dreadnoughts gleamed under floodlights. Soldiers and medics moved like dancers rehearsing for an opera of survival. Ship was fitted with quarantine modules and medical bays. Engineers loaded crates of vaccines, tablets of antiviral compounds, and pressurized capsules filled with Earth's most advanced nanobot therapies. On the deck of the lead ship, Mara watched as her team fastened straps on medical cases. Despite the weight of what lay ahead, disease-unknown environments, the fate of an entire species, her heart thrummed with fierce pride. They were about to become saviors to a world they had never seen. As the fleet prepared to slip the bonds of Earth's gravity, Mara stood again at a viewport, this time aboard the flagship Ardent Resolve. She whispered a pledge to the silent Silurian night. "We will come for you. You will not face death alone." In that moment, Earth itself seemed to hold its breath, sending its bravest hearts into the stars to answer a desperate plea. For the first time in centuries, hope shone across the void. Ashes of sunlight filtered through the great windows of Orbital Command Station Asteria, casting a pale glow across the hushed council chamber. Delegates sat in tense silence, their faces illuminated by the shifting hologram of the Silurian homeworld. Each spoke in measured tones, yet behind every word lay anxiety. They were about to decide if humanity would send its bravest souls into the unknown, to the heart of a crisis that no one fully understood. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Solace Nakamura, her uniform crisp, her posture calm but alert. She tapped the console at her side, and the hologram zoomed in on the ruined cities below the amber clouds. "This world is dying," she said softly. "Our people are weak. Their ships are grounded. If we delay, it may already be too late." Voices from the audience shifted. Some nodded in agreement, others murmured doubts. Dr. Elena Russo rose. Next, she clasped her data slate to her chest as though it were a treasured book. "The signal we received is more than raw data," she explained, voice trembling with passion. "It carries a plea written in patterns that mirror life's own rhythms. We have the means to help. Our medical teams stand ready." A lump caught in her throat, and she took a steadying breath before adding, "We must answer with more than weapons." Tears glimmered in her eyes as cameras flashed, capturing the moment humanity chose compassion. From the back row, diplomat Rohan Iqbal stood. He was young, his uniform fresh, his nerves barely concealed. "History will judge us," he said, voice echoing in the silent hall. "If we respond with fear, we reveal the darkest parts of our nature. If we respond with hope, we show what makes us human. Let us not hide behind caution when lives hang in the balance." His words reached even the sternest faces, and a hush fell over the chamber as delegates weighed his plea. Outside the chamber, press drones whirred like curious insects, gathering every scrap of news for hungry viewers below. Across Earth, millions held their breath. In school classrooms, children pressed their faces against windows to watch passing ships. In hospitals, nurses paused beside beds, hoping that the promise of rescue would one day apply to them. Everywhere, people debated what it meant to be part of a galaxy that was finally asking for help. Back in the chamber, General Marcus Hale leaned forward. His years on brutal war zones had taught him caution. "We know nothing of the contagion," he warned, voice grave. "Our own crew could become victims. We must secure quarantine protocols. We must be ready to fight, not just heal." He looked at Admiral Nakamura, silently asking for her to prove him wrong. She met his gaze and gave a small nod, as though promising safety amidst the uncertainty. The final vote began. Red and green lights shimmered on every seat, each delegate's choice marked for all to see. The tension was electric. Green flickered, then red, then green again, hope and fear, dancing across the chamber. When the last light glowed green, a soft cheer rose. Humanity had cast its lot with compassion. Plans to mobilize the Deathworlder fleet began immediately. Tears fell down cheeks that had been stoic just moments before. In the corridors beyond, Admiral Nakamura paused beside a window that looked out on the stars. She touched the glass and whispered, "May we be worthy of this trust." Dr. Russo joined her, voice low, "We will not fail them." At her words, the Admiral offered a rare smile, the weight of command softened by shared hope. Soon, the command station buzzed with activity. Technicians initiated hyperdrive sequences. Medical teams in crisp white uniforms boarded transports. Engineers adjusted filters and seals on quarantine modules. Every action was a note in a grand symphony of salvation. Among the bustle, Mara Chen arrived, still wearing her flight harness. Her eyes shone with purpose as she joined her squad. "We're going in," she said quietly. Her companions nodded, hearts steady with resolve. As night fell on Earth, the fleet's engines ignited in silent light. One by one, the colossal ships slipped free of orbital docks and vanished into the starlit sky. Below, millions watched the glow fade, hearts both heavy and hopeful. In every home, people whispered prayers for the safe passage of those on the front lines of hope. High above, in the cold reaches of space, the Deathworlder fleet accelerated toward the amber-lit world of the Solarians. Bound by duty, driven by compassion, and united by the promise made in that council chamber, they raced against time itself. In the silence between stars, humanity's answer to the ancient SOS gleamed like a promise. "We will come. We will not leave you to face death alone." On the shattered plains of Hellion Prime, where searing winds ripped through ruined stone towers, squads of recruits gathered beneath jagged cliffs. Each newcomer wore the uniform of the Deathworlder fleet, scarred from training on planets where acid rains fell and gravity crushed. Lieutenant Mara Chen stood before them, her voice calm but firm. Today, she began, we take our first step toward saving a world we have never seen. The recruits exchanged nervous glances, hearts pounding with excitement and fear. For some, this was their first mission beyond Earth. For others, it was another battle and a lifetime of hardship. Still, every face held hope far above. In the cavernous bay of the transport ship Vigilant Dawn, engineers loaded crates of vaccine vials and sealed containers of bio-nanobots. Dr. Elena Russo oversaw the process with quiet determination. She brushed a loose strand of hair from her face as she checked the seals. Each package represented hours of sleepless work, trials and failures narrowed down to these precious vials. She thought of the titans of Silurian legend. Their stone statues still standing in silent tribute to a once great civilization. Now it fell to her to revive that greatness with human science. A tremor of purpose shivered through her chest. Down. On the training grounds, a burly Marine named Corporal Theo Vargas tested his Geiger counter over a patch of simulated spores. The gadget beeped rapidly as he adjusted filters designed to detect exotic pathogens. He glanced at Dr. Pham, the medical officer, who offered a small grin. Better safe than sorry, she said, voice light amid the tension. Theo nodded. Recalling the morning when his own sister fell ill to a rare earthborn virus, he had been too late to save her. Now he vowed no child, human or Silurian, would die because of oversight. In a side hangar, Captain Amina Johnson reviewed shuttles, bound for the landing party. Each craft was armored against toxic gases and armed with non-lethal deterrents. She placed a hand on the hull of the nearest shuttle, feeling the cold metal beneath her glove. Memories of her first deployment, when she watched comrades fall. 2 alien ambushes flickered in her mind, yet in those memories lay a lesson. Fear need not control courage. She straightened her shoulders and called out, "Let's load up, team." A chorus of affirmative voices answered, echoing in the vast bay. At the edge of the plane, recruits formed squads around their squad leaders. Mara walked among them, offering quiet words of encouragement, knelt beside a young ensign whose cheeks were pale. "You'll do fine," Mara whispered. "Remember, you carry more than medicine. You carry hope." The ensign's eyes glistened and she nodded, clutching her medical satchel with white-knuckled determination. Around them, the wind roared, scattering dust and debris, as if the planet itself tested their will, as the sun dipped below Hillion's horizon. Casting long shadows across the rocky ground, the final muster began.
Oh.
A low horn sounded from the flagship Ardent Resolve, calling each squad to board their shuttles. Under the glow of floodlights, families of recruits stood on observation decks, sending silent prayers into the night. Engineers climbed aboard last, sealing heavy doors with resonant thuds. Inside, lights flickered on, illuminating bunk rows and medical stretchers strapped to the walls. The hum of priming engines filled the cabin, a promise of motion to come. Lieutenant Chen stood in the shuttle's front cabin, her reflection caught in the small viewport. Around her, the crew busied themselves with final checks. She thought of Earth blue and vibrant now, millions of kilometers behind them, yet still guiding their hearts. She thought of the Silurians, so alone in their dying world, and felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like a cloak. Then she inhaled deeply, steadying herself. "I need to go," she announced into her come.
Wait.
A volley of voices replied, "Ready." In that moment, fear and courage merged. Forging a single truth, they would face the unknown together. And they would prevail. Asterisk shuttles detached from the Ardent Resolve and dropped toward the waiting fleet below, their engines humming like a chorus of determined hearts. Lieutenant Mara Chen felt the shuttle's gentle tremor under her boots as the pilot engaged the hyperdrive sequence. In moments, streaks of light and star fields blended into a white blur, and the vast silence of hyperspace wrapped around them. Inside the cabin, the medical team held fast to handrails, eyes closed or fixed on their stations. Each soul carried a quiet prayer, that they would arrive safely and that hope would not slip through their fingers. Outside the viewport corridors, of amber clouds and swirling mists stretched into the void. Every jump brought them closer to the Silurian system, but the unknown dangers pressed on minds like heavy stones. Corporal Theo Vargas hovered by the sensor console, fingertips brushing the controls as he watched for signs of radiation spikes or rogue asteroids. "All clear," he announced softly, and a wave of relief washed through the crew. Safe. Reading felt like a small victory, proof that their training could stand against the galaxy's wild whims. In the adjacent cabin, Dr. Alina Russo reviewed simulation data on a holopad. She adjusted antibody concentrations and recalculated dosage rates, her brow furrowed with focus. Every number on the pad represented a life-one child gasping in. A makeshift tent, one elder clinging to memories of brighter days. She worked in silence, heart thudding with urgency. When the shuttle lurched again into the next hyperspace corridor, she barely noticed. Her world narrowed to the glow of data and the promise that her science could heal an ancient race. Captain Amina Johnson stepped through the hatch into the main cabin, her boots echoing on the metal deck. She offered Mara a small nod. One soldier. To another, Mara returned the gesture and adjusted her cum gear. 10 minutes to drop point, the pilot's voice crackled. Round them, the crew checked harnesses, tightened straps, and sealed storage lockers. Each action felt sacred. They were more than a military unit, they were the bearers of life itself. As the shuttle emerged from hyperspace for the final time, the Silurian system filled the viewport. 3 suns, orange, green, and pale violet, hung low in the sky, casting eerie hues on brown oceans and shattered continents. The largest planet blazed with amber storms that twisted like living things. Mara's breath caught. She had studied every chart, but nothing prepared her for the sight of a world bleeding its last breath. Tears pricked her eyes and she forced herself to stand tall. "There it is," she whispered. "This is why we came." Below them, orbital stations lay crippled, their solar arrays twisted and silent. Ships once proud and graceful floated, dark and empty. Mara felt the weight of every lost vessel, every silent crew. She imagined the fear that must have gripped the Silurians as their world faltered. Now, she and her crew would write a new chapter, one of hope and rescue. In the passenger bay, injured Silurian survivors had been loaded onto specialized pods. Their eyes wide with pain, but bright with longing, tracked the shuttle's descent. Mara offered a gentle smile, trying to send comfort through her gaze. The shuttle dropped through yellow-green haze, engines straining against corrosive particles. Sparks flickered beneath the hull as it pierced the toxic layer. At her station, Dr. Pham monitored air filters, calling out changes in gas composition. Her voice was steady, but Mara sensed the tension coiled under her calm. Every second felt like a test of will. As the shuttle cleared the worst of the storm, the landing platform came into view, a battered metal field lit by emergency beacons and dotted with awaiting ambulances. Wheels touched down with a soft thud, and the shuttle's ramp hissed open. A gust of acrid wind and swirling spores rolled in, carrying the distant cries of survivors. Mara drew in a breath, feeling the sting of alien air on her lungs. Then she stepped out, first onto the red-stained tarmac, then into history. Behind her, the crew disembarked in formation. Medical kits at ready, weapons holstered but close. In that moment, the full weight of their mission settled on them. They were the first human feet on Silurian soil in centuries, sent to heal. World on the brink of extinction. Mara straightened her back, heart beating with a mix of fear and fierce pride. Around her, the Deathworlder fleet symbol gleamed on every uniform, a clenched fist beneath a rising sun. It spoke of survival against all odds. Now, that symbol would mean something more. It would stand for compassion, for unity across species, and for the promise that no one would face death alone. With a final look at her squad, Mara said, "Let's bring them home." And together, they advanced into the amber haze, carrying humanity's hope on trembling shoulders. A pale morning light broke through the amber clouds as medical shuttles rumbled across the landing platform. Lieutenant Mara Chen moved among rows of survivors, her voice soft and steady as she guided them into triage bays. Silurian men, women, and children, gaunt and fragile, leaned on each other for support. Each face told a story of loss and fear, but in their eyes flickered a spark of trust, the first gift they offered to their human rescuers. Inside the makeshift clinic, Dr. Alina Russo knelt beside a trembling elder wrapped in tattered robes. She pressed a cool gel pack to a fevered brow and spoke in gentle tones, using the few Silurian phrases she had learned. The elder's eyes, once hollow, brightened with understanding. When the fever broke, tears rolled down the alien's cheek, and Dr. Russo felt her own eyes sting. In that moment, science and kindness joined as one. Corporal Theo Vargas and Dr. Pham worked side by side at the decontamination chamber. They guided survivors through showers of neutralizing mist, removing toxic spores from skin and hair. Theo placed a reassuring hand on a young survivor's shoulder as she recoiled at the strange spray. "You're safe now," he whispered, and the girl nodded, trembling until her tears slowed and courage took their place. Beyond the chamber, engineers unloaded crates of supplies, nutrient packs, charcoal masks, and stacks of blankets. Captain Amina Johnson directed the effort with calm authority. She watched as drones carried vaccine vials to sterile tents and heavy doors swung shut to seal off infection risks. Each movement was precise, each order clear. Under her steady gaze, what could have been chaos became a dance of purpose. When the first group of recovered survivors stepped out of quarantine, their gaunt frames showed fresh color. They wore human-provided tunics, bright blue against the ashen landscape. Mara stood by the exit, offering cups of warm broth. One young Silurian child took the cup with shaky fingers, raised it to her lips, and sipped. Her face lit with surprise and delight as the liquid soothed her throat. Mara felt a surge of relief wash through her. This was why they risked everything. In the center of the camp, a makeshift council formed under a battered shelter. Silurian elders, wrapped in ceremonial cloth, sat beside human diplomats.
"Oh, diplomat,"
Rohan Iqbal translated carefully, his words weaving understanding between two cultures. "Your world matters to us," he said, voice clear. "We stand with you." Hush fell as the message settled. Then, as one, the elders placed their hands over their hearts in a silent vow of friendship. Night fell. The clinic tents glowed under floodlights. Dr. Russo checked on rows of patients breathing under soft hums of life support. It was a promise kept. Outside, the wind howled through broken spires, but inside, the pulse of healing never faltered. In a quiet corner, a nurse tucked a blanket around a sleeping child, humming a lullaby learned from Earth's old songs. The melody bridged worlds, wrapping warmth around cold hearts at the camp's edge. Lieutenant Chen stood with Corporal Vargas, watching children chase small, harmless drones. Laughter bright and clear pealed across the tarmac. It was a sound neither human nor Silurian had heard in years. Theo smiled at Mara and said softly, "We did this." Mara nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "We did," she agreed, feeling pride swell in her chest. Under the stars. Survivors and rescuers shared stories around flickering lights. A Silurian sculptor showed human artists broken shards of his work, and they discussed how to restore beauty. A human medic learned an ancient song and taught it to a small group of listeners. Bonds formed over shared creativity and compassion, stronger than any language barrier. As dawn approached, the camp lay peaceful under amber skies. Lieutenant Chen walked between tents, touching a wrist, offering a word of comfort. In every face, she saw hope reborn. The mission was far from over, but today had shown what humanity could achieve when it chose kindness over fear. And as she looked toward the silent silhouette of the Deathworlder dreadnoughts waiting in orbit, she whispered to the stars, "We will see this through together." Asterisk, a soft breeze stirred the white banners around the camp as morning light filtered through amber clouds. Survivors and rescuers moved among tents with calm purpose. Children with bright blue tunics carried small bowls of broth. Nurses guided them gently. Lieutenant Mara Chen walked beside Dr. Alina Russo, noting how the camp had grown into a place of life instead of despair. Each face she passed carried warmth and trust. Diplomat Rohan Iqbal had organized a small festival to honor the fragile new bond between humans and Silurians. Under a canopy of glowing lanterns, tables were set with earth fruits and Silurian flatbreads. Musicians from both worlds tuned their instrument strings and soft windpipes. The plan was simple: share a meal, exchange stories, and prove that hope could rebuild what disease had torn apart. As the first guests arrived, laughter drifted on the breeze. Mara paused by a long table where children painted simple murals of stars and suns. She knelt beside a young girl holding a brush smeared with blue paint. "This is beautiful," Mara said. The girl nodded shyly, her eyes shining. Around them, healers and engineers laughed together, sharing recipes and song lines in their mixed languages. But joy gave way to alarm when a nurse rushed toward Mara, her voice tight with panic. "Lieutenant, 3 children are missing from the medical tent," she cried. Mara felt her heart drop. She sprang to her feet, adrenaline sharpening. Her thoughts. A pulse of dread swept through the camp as word spread. Some of the most vulnerable had vanished. Cries rang out as families gathered around empty beds. Parents wept and called names, voices breaking with fear. Camp guards hurried past, weapons ready, but confusion etched on every face. Dr. Russo joined Mara, tears in her eyes. "They trust us," she whispered. "We must find them fast." Mara placed a steady hand on the scientist's shoulder. "We will," she promised. Captain Amina Johnson took swift command. She called for all available squads and organized search teams. Corporal Theo Vargas stood by her side, scanning data on a handheld sensor. "Power readings show activity in the old supply hangar," he reported. The building had stood empty since initial quarantine, its doors sealed months ago. Mara's jaw tightened. "Let's move," she ordered. In under a minute, Mara led a team through twisting corridors toward the supply hangar. The air felt heavier here, stale with dust. Sparks flickered from broken lights. Inside, crates lay overturned and spore residue clung to walls. At the far end, muffled sobs echoed. Mara pressed forward, weapon lowered but ready. She signaled. Vargas too followed quietly at her side. They rounded a corner and found 3 children huddled against a stack of crates. Around them, masked figures in dark robes stood guard. One figure stepped forward, revealing the face of a hardened Silurian. Warlord named Thal Orin. His eyes burned with blame. "Your medicine came too late," he hissed. "Now they will pay for your failures." Mara held up her empty hands. "Let them go," she said. Her voice was firm, yet gentle. "They are children. They have lost enough," Thal Orin sneered. "These children remind me of all we lost. If I show strength, my people will follow." Behind him, 2 followers raised their weapons. Vargas stepped beside Mara, finger on the trigger. At that moment, Dr. Russo and Captain Johnson burst in from the side door. Russo pleaded in Silurian, "This is not the way. They need care, not fear." The tension snapped when one guard hesitated. Lowering his weapon, Johnson moved forward, offering a medkit. "We can help you heal your people," she said. Slowly, fear and doubt warred in Thalorin's eyes. He released the children and stalked past Mara. The little ones rushed into Russo's arms, sobbing. Volunteers led them back to medical tents. Mara felt relief wash over her. Vargas exhaled and unclipped his rifle. "We did it," he said quietly. Mara offered a tired smile. "Yes, we did." Back at the clinic, the rescued children slept under new blankets. Parents held their hands until peace returned. Mara stood at the tent's entrance, watching the first stars emerge in the amber sky. The bond between worlds had deepened in trust, and also been tested by anger. She touched the camp flag where human and Silurian symbols intertwined. In the hush before dawn, Mara whispered, "We will face anger with compassion." Around her, the camp lay quiet but alive. The mission was no longer just about saving lives. It was about healing hearts. As the first light brightened the horizon, she felt hope's pulse steady once more. Together, they would rebuild and stand against any who chose fear over friendship. Lieutenant Mara Chen stood at the viewport of the Ardent Resolve's medical bay, watching the pale glow of orbital lights dance against the planet below. The hospital module orbited quietly, its purpose clear: healing. Low, through the transparent hull, she could see rows of stretchers and the gentle hum of life support. Yet in Mara's heart, a drumbeat of tension warned that peace could shatter at any moment. Suddenly, alarms blared through the corridors. Captain Amina Johnson's voice crackled over the comm. "All hands, prepare for boarding. We have incoming hostiles on the attack run." Mara's breath caught, but she squared her shoulders. She grabbed her non-lethal pulse rifle and followed. A squad of Marines into the central corridor? The walls vibrated as the station shuddered under explosive charges. In the medical bay, Dr. Alina Russo knelt by a wounded Silurian child, wrapping a soft bandage around a scraped knee. Wide eyes trembled with fear as distant booms echoed. Russo pressed a gentle hand against the small shoulder. "Stay calm," she whispered, voice soothing. "We will keep you safe." The child nodded, trusting the human healer even as the walls groaned. Mara and her squad reached the airlock leading to the main docking chamber. Through the reinforced glass doors, they saw shadowy figures in dark robes, followers of Thal, Orrin rushing forward with makeshift weapons. The intruders' faces twisted in anger, believing violence could force respect. Mara raised her rifle but did not fire. Signaled her team to secure non-lethal rounds. "Hold the line," she ordered, voice steady. The first assailant lunged forward, and Sergeant Kim unleashed a pulse blast that knocked him off his feet. He crashed against a bulkhead, groaning in stunned silence. Oh no. Blood spilled. Only a flash of light and a soft thud. One by one, invaders fell into nets or collapsed, disarmed without permanent harm. Each Marine moved with practiced precision, protecting life even as they defended the hospital. As the boarding chamber brightened with emergency lights, Captain Johnson arrived with reinforcements. She pressed a button, and heavy shutters lowered to seal off the medical wing. "Everyone safe?" she called. Mara gave a quick nod. Johnson's gaze swept the room, pride and relief shining in her eyes. "Good work," she said quietly. "Let's move." Down the corridor, they found Thal, Orrin himself, standing before the sealed shutters. His robe was torn, and his face burned with fury. He raised a hand as if to speak, but the Marines formed a loose circle around him, weapons lowered but ready. Mara stepped forward. "This place is for healing," she said softly. "Violence here only hurts the innocent." Thal Orrin's chest heaved. For a moment, he glared at Mara, his followers scattered and defeated. Then his shoulders slumped. He looked past her to the hospital lights flickering on the other side of the shutters. "I was afraid," he confessed in a low voice. "I thought I must show strength." His tone cracked, revealing regret. The Marines stayed silent, awaiting orders. Captain Johnson raised her hand, and the shutters hissed open. Inside, Dr. Russo rose from her kneeling position beside the child and stepped forward. She set aside her med kit and extended her free hand to Thal Orrin. "Strength is not only in weapons," she said. "It is in healing, in forgiveness." The warlord hesitated, then placed his hand in hers. Around them, Marines lowered their rifles, in the quiet that followed the hospital. Bay filled with calm. The wounded Silurians were safe under human care. Thal Orrin stood among doctors and soldiers, his anger cooled into sorrow. Mara watched as the warlord touched the bed rail of a civilian patient and nodded. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. In that moment, boundaries between enemy and ally dissolved. Later, in the observation deck overlooking the station, Mara, Johnson, Russo, and even Thal Orrin stood together. The galaxy's 3 suns peered through the viewport, casting pale light on their faces. The warlord turned to Mara. "You saved my people," he said softly. "Not with fire, but with mercy." Mara felt tears prick her eyes. She nodded. "That is what makes us human," she replied. Above the amber tides of the dying world, the orbital hospital trembled no more, under siege. Instead, it hummed with the quiet pulse of healing. In the final stand, humanity had shown its true power: compassion under fire. And as the station's lights glowed against the darkness, hope shone brighter than any weapon ever could. dawn broke. Over the amber clouds, as a quiet calm settled across the Silurian plains, survivors stirred from their rest in the shaded tents, greeted by the soft glow of Earth's medical ships orbiting above. Lieutenant Mara Chen stepped onto the landing platform, her boots crunching on the red dust. Around her, Silurian children ran barefoot toward the arriving human engineers, its laughter weaving through the humid air like a gentle breeze. Mara smiled, feeling the warmth of hope flourish in her chest. The central clearing, Dr. Alina Russo stood beside a massive holoscreen displaying vital signs for every patient still under care. Rows of tiny green lights blinked steadily, each one marking a life saved. Russo watched as the final data upload confirmed the last cured patient, closed her eyes, and let out a breath she did not realize she held. Then she pressed a hand to her heart and whispered, "We did it." Tears glistened on her cheeks as she turned to share the news. Nearby, Captain Amina Johnson oversaw the dismantling of the quarantine barriers. Her crew worked side by side, with Silurian volunteers hauling away panels one by one. A mild breeze carried the scent of alien spice plants that had sprung back to life around the camp's edge. As the last barrier fell, Silurian workers set down their tools and bowed deeply to the humans. Johnson met their gesture with a respectful nod, understanding that unlikely respect had grown from shared sacrifice. Across the field, Corporal Theo Vargas joined diplomat Rohan Iqbal under a makeshift pavilion decorated with intertwined flags of Earth and Siluria. Iqbal cleared his throat, and Vargas watched as the young diplomat's voice rang out clear and proud. "Today, we celebrate not only survival but friendship beyond worlds." Applause rippled through the gathering crowd. Mara stood with Vargas, her armor still dusted in planetary soil, and felt pride swell at the sight of two species united in joy. In the shade of a broken temple, the Silurian High Elder approached the gathering. His ancient robes brushed the ground, embroidery worn but dignified. He held out a carved crystal Orban heirloom, symbolizing Silurian resilience, and presented it to Admiral Solace Nakamura, who had arrived to witness the conclusion of the mission. The Admiral accepted the gift with solemn respect, her own eyes moist. "Your courage inspired us," Nakamura said softly. "May this bond guide our futures." As the sun climbed higher, human engineers finished packing medical kits and sealed them into cargo holds. Shuttles waited in neat rows, ready to return to orbit. Mara joined her squad at the ramp of the Vigilant Dawn, the first ship to lift. Off. She glanced back at the smiling faces of Silurian survivors. Some waved towels. Others lifted small children on their shoulders. Every life saved was a promise kept. When the shuttle rose, the platform rumbled with the echo of its engines. Mara stood at the viewport, watching the tents shrink into dots. She thought of every moment of fear and triumph, the first contact, the cure, the rescue through betrayal and violence, and the healing that followed. All of it had led to this Ascenta, silent farewell to the world they had saved. As they cleared the atmosphere, Mara pressed her hand to the glass. "Goodbye, my friends," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. In orbit, the fleet regrouped. Around the ardent resolve, ships clasped in formation like a flock of protective birds. Admiral Nakamura's voice came over the comm. "All crews, prepare to return home." Cheers erupted through every channel. Mara exchanged high fives with her crewmates, laughter bubbling up at last. Dr. Russo hugged her colleagues, and even the usually stony Marines cracked smiles. The galaxy felt vast, but about to become a little smaller and kinder. Her aboard. The flagship Mara and her squad stood on the observation deck as Earth's blue glow filled the viewport. Below them lay a home that had dared to answer a call across light years. They had sailed into danger and emerged triumphant. Mara allowed herself a confident grin. She knew the Deathworlder fleet would now be remembered not only for its strength, but for its compassion. As hyperspace folded around them, the fleet carried with it a legacy of hope. In every heart on board, the memory of Siluria's amber skies would live on. Humanity had reached across the void and found that, even in the darkest places, kindness could prevail. And as the stars blurred into streaks of light, Mara Chen whispered into the stillness. We will always come when you call.